in our midst. A worker had the scout, who was encumbered and full of jelly, by the antenna. This was not a scout from Colony 3. It was the 6th scout of Colony 1 that had wandered into the wrong hole. Oh no! I tried not to panic.
Yanlış delik.
They weren't spraying formic acid yet, and there was a possibility this was the wrestling ritual prior to the process of ant colonies eventually joining forces. My heart stopped as I watched to see what the ants would do next. A second ant came around to smell the newcomer. She seemed quite interested in her full gaster. Oh, I hoped they weren't going to kill her. A third ant came to inspect the strange ant with a different colony scent that had been dragged in. Again, the full gaster was of great interest. A fourth ant came to smell her out too. The full ant tried to remain calm in the face of this very tense moment and tried to sneak away, but it was no use. This worker was not about to let go so easily. Why leave so soon? The worker sneered at the trespasser. Our queen would like to see you now. Instantly, the scout tried to burst away and make a run for it, but the sudden struggle caused a blob of jelly to come bursting out of its mouth from its full turgid crop. The other ants seized the opportunity and drank from this blob like desperate hyenas, hoping for an easy meal. Let me go, the ant pleaded. It was then that the giant queen approached to inspect her minion's latest catch. Now, who do we have here? The queen inquired as she waved her antennae cautiously to smell. Workers continued to drink from the blobs of jelly barfed up as a result of the ants' complete fear. It was at this exact moment that I completely regretted this entire experiment. But one thing I did notice was that they still weren't completely killing this ant trespasser. There was no formic acid spray, no tearing of limbs, no panic, just antenna cuffs and inspection. The full ant seemed paralyzed with fear and almost surrendered to her fate at the hands of these foreign ants. But then, suddenly, the ant who had been holding the ant hostage the whole time got hungry. She was envious of the ants that were able to have a taste of the sweet jelly. So she released her mandible grip and attempted to get the hostage to barf up more jelly. Give me some of that. That was enough for the ant to then spring into action and escape. It leaped up to its feet and ran out the door. It almost went into the hole of Colony 2. But nope, it wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. It quickly cleaned its antennae so it could smell better and headed towards its home scent. It ran back to the correct opening of its true colony, Colony 1, and rushed through the door as fast as it could. OMG guys, you won't believe what just happened to me. Boy, was she glad to be back home and safe. She proceeded to regurgitate the contents of her jelly collection to her beloved colony members. I stayed up to monitor to send out scouts, nor would there be any signs of aggression from home court. This experiment did not turn out the way I expected. Worker ant was dragged. Should we keep it? I separate them now before this escalates and of this video.
Burada bitirdi adam. Olay çıkmadı oğlum. Olay çıkmadı amık. A part 2'si var. Bir dakika. Ant murder mı? Adam kaçırma ve üzgün haberler mi?
Horrifying and a big surprise. Welcome to part 2 of 7 ant colonies in one arena. That they were a polygynous species of
Tamam, nereden başlıyor?
Campanosium. For those of you who are new and are wondering what
şuradan herhalde. Öskileri falan gösterdi.
Ant Colony 1. All the workers were full of food.
Bunlar kasıldı oğlum.
Dropped when I saw this.
Nasıl yani? O ne
The
lan?
head and thorax of an ant that had been mercilessly torn in half. Colony 1 had committed ant murder overnight.
Cinayet.
I was so saddened by this. I felt so bad for conducting this experiment. It seemed these ants, or at least this colony, was not willing to form an alliance with other ant colonies. I wondered which colony this murdered ant belonged to. I looked into the other test tubes and was devastated once more when I saw this.
Neyi gördün oğlum? Lan niye?
Another murdered ant in colony 4. Its carcass lay lifeless in the colony's garbage dump.
Yiyin
Which
amına koyayım.
ant colony did this ant belong to? I looked around further. Another dead ant carcass spotted in colony 6.
Yiyin abi.
No! Whose colony did this dead worker belong to?
Vesselam.
I eventually found my answer.
Grom, G-Gover, Roterpit, Geonidas, İsmail Aktay. Hoş geldiniz canlar.
I nearly cried when I checked up on
Abartma
colony 8.
yarram ya.
Each member
Lan
stood still.
doğa böyle abi.
Aleyküm
Abi sal ya kanka. Ağlayacaktım. O karıncayı öldüğünü görünce ağlayacaktım. Aynen.
As I scanned the test tube. It seems overnight, colony 8 had lost workers. And to my utter shock, all its brood. This means that one or more of the ant colonies had raided this ant nest, kidnapped all the babies, and murdered the colony's workers. The guilt I felt from seeing all of this was unbearable. I decided to separate all 7 ant
Oğlum
colonies
kaçırmış lan.
and not pursue with the mixing. I think I had enough evidence to determine that these ant colonies of ours were not peaceful to each other and would not blend together. This species of carpenter ants of ours were indeed monogynous and not polygynous. Thankfully, a few days after this mixing, I checked up on colony 8 and was pleased to see that the queen had already begun to lay eggs to rebuild the initial army she had
Aga
lost.
bebeklerini
I knew
kaçırmışlar.
colony 8 would soon bounce back. I would be feeding this ant colony extra food as my way of saying sorry and making things right. Now, AC family, at the start of this video, I mentioned that there would be a surprise reveal as well as an important vote. I'll start first with the surprise reveal.
Aga uçan
Remember
versiyonunu
Queen
almayayım
5,
ya.
how she was behind on raising worker ants? And we
Bebek
suspected
kaçırma
that perhaps she hadn't mated during her nuptial flight, and were waiting to see if her first adult ant would be a male ant. Because if it did turn out to be male, it indeed meant she hadn't mated and couldn't possibly create her own ant colony.
Ters
Well,
31
the
eto.
first cocoon finally hatched this week. And this is the official gender reveal.
Evet bebeği oluyor arkadaşlar. Neymiş bakalım cinsiyeti? Oturduk insan gibi karınca izliyoruz amık. Oğlum niye kanadı var?
It was male. We were right. And sadly it means all these babies are male ants. And that she hadn't successfully mated during her nuptial flight 74 days ago. If you're new to ants and don't understand how an unmated queen can go on to even give birth at all, it's strange, I know, but in ant genetics, unmated queen ants can actually go on to lay eggs, but they can only become male ants. Queens need the sperm
Döllenmezse de doğurabiliyormuş ama doğurduğu zaman erkek oluyormuş. Ne var abi?
of a male ant during her nuptial flight to produce females, i.e. worker ants. And so this queen
Kadınlar sadece çalışıyormuş. Erkek ne sikim yiyor?
here is pretty much doomed to die because male ants don't do any work and won't be able to take care of her. How sad. I think I'll hold on to her for a bit longer and see if
Yaşıyor.
maybe worker ants hatch from any of these other cocoons. But if not, I may bury her test tube to allow her to die naturally in the wild. Unless you guys have some other suggestions. Like
Aga,
Chano
onu
Jensen
gönderiyorlar.
mentioned in his comment, sometimes the result of an kept them together. I appreciate
Yani tam bir dövüş olmadı bu
like
arada.
to see what an epic ant war is like.
Epic Ant Wars falan göremedim ben abi. Epic karınca savaşları göremedim ben.